Today is the 13th of July, 2015. We are here at the Marriott Marquis Hotel in San Diego, California, at the Ninth Circuit Judicial Conference. And today we're here to interview Judge Robert E. Jones. This interview will be a brief video oral history. It will be recording some reflections on his career in the law. I'm Tom McDermott, and I'm here on behalf of the Ninth Judicial Circuit Historical Society. This interview will be preserved in the Ninth Judicial Circuit Historical Society archives, and the Historical Society will provide you with a copy for your own use. Judge Jones, how did you make the decision to become a lawyer?
Well, it was an interesting decision because my chosen field was ocean marine insurance, and I had that kind of a background, my dad being a sea captain, I was in Hawaii, and we were representing Lloyd's of London, the Queen, Royal Globe, and the Tug Ono blew up. And all these hotshot Admiralty lawyers came over from San Francisco to handle this case. And my wife wanted to get back to what we called then the mainland. And so she said, "Why don't you become an Admiralty lawyer?" I said, "Well, that sounds fine to me." And so that's what I did.
So you went to law school in Hawaii or come
No,
back to the States?
They didn't have a law school in Hawaii. Went back to Portland, where I was born and raised, and where she was born and raised. We just celebrated number 67.
Well, congratulations on that. That's terrific.
Yeah. Well, we started earlier than that, but in any event, I went through law school, what is now Lewis and Clark Law School, and while I worked full-time as in claims, as an adjuster, and then later claims manager and superintendent.
How did you get to Hawaii? Were you sent over there by your employer?
No, we just went over there. My dad was over there as a marine surveyor, and we wanted to have some adventure, and so we got there with $50 in our pocket, and Pearl worked for the radio station and KULA, and I worked in the insurance area.
How long did you live in Hawaii?
Just a couple of years.
Just a couple of years?
Yeah. But we go back almost every year.
Go back. Did you keep a home over there? Or just...
No, I wish we had.
Had bought it at the right time, right?
Yeah.
Well, did you have, I'm sure your father was a role model. Being a sea captain, that would be a good role model. Did you have any other role models in the law or otherwise?
Really, I didn't. Just kind of waltzed into it, and then, of course, I was handling claims and dealing with lawyers all the time and stuff, so it was natural.
Yeah, I can see how that would be. When you, after you graduated from law school, where did you start to practice?
Well, I went into practice with my two study partners. That was a big mistake. It didn't work out. And so I went on my own, and then I'd been doing low-level insurance defense, and I couldn't crack into the big field, so I became a plaintiff's lawyer. Well, I can't join them, I'll beat them. So I got in a couple of good verdicts, and I was hired by the largest plaintiff's firm in Oregon. And then I did nothing except try plaintiff's cases.
What was the name of that firm?
Anderson, Franklin, Jones, Olson, and Bennett.
Oh, well, that sounds like a pretty good firm. How many lawyers did you have?
Oh, this small firm, about 10.
All personal injury
Yeah,
plaintiff?
Yeah.
How long were you there?
I just practiced for 10 years. I was burnt out as a trial lawyer. We were working Saturdays and come in Sundays and dictate to my court reporter secretary and back in court. And it's too much. And I got in the legislature and got acquainted with Governor Hatfield. You know, how do you become a judge? No, a lawyer or a senator.
Did you got elected?
Oh, I mean, no, a governor or a senator.
You got elected to the legislature, or you just started to beat the legislators?
I had the most undistinguished career in the Oregon legislature in history. I went in there, I served for 10 months, went on Navy duty, came back, in the fall and went on the bench. So I passed no bills that passed, entered no bills that passed.
How did you get on the legislature? Did you get elected or did you get appointed?
Oh, I enjoyed it immensely, but I wanted to be a judge, and that's how it worked out. It's worked out. That's 52 years ago.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I'm a real judicial antique.
What court were you appointed to? Federal district court? You go when you first went on the bench.
Oh, I went on the state court. I was there too long. I was a bridesmaid for the federal appointment twice, but anyway, I served almost 20 years on the state court. I was on the state Supreme Court, and I served there for 8 years or thereabouts. I loved that too, but I'd always had, this is where I wanted to be, on the federal trial lawyer, judge, and that's where I am. Still love it. I don't consider going to court going to work. I love the job, the work.
What would you consider to be the differences between being on the Supreme Court in Oregon and being on the federal district court?
Oh, it's beautiful. I don't have to argue with anybody.
You just tell them what to do, right?
Yeah. I try to be unappealable.
So you've been on the federal court now. I didn't do the math.
25 years.
25 years. You have senior status now?
Yeah, I've been senior status.
Are you still?
I have a full calendar.
Still have full
but
calendar?
I'm dropping the civil and going full criminal, and I'm busy. I just closed 200 cases this last 12 months, so I'm keeping active. Can't get enough trials. They settle everything.
Now, how many cases do you have on your calendar?
Well, I said I just closed 200 this year, so we have dozens. And
yeah,
it's
a heavy load, I know.
It's all we can handle and then some.
Going back to the time when you were a trial lawyer, did you have any really interesting cases or big jury verdicts or anything you could tell us about?
Pretty much run of the mill, nothing to brag about. But we had some wins, had some losses too.
And in those days, as I recall anyway, you settled a lot of cases at the same time.
No, sure.
Didn't try them all.
No.
Tried a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I know exactly what you mean. Well, you pretty much told us how you became a judge. You were on the state Supreme Court, so
Yeah.
the confirmation process came about without too much difficulty?
Well, when you're appointed to the Supreme Court, there's no confirmation process, and I love the Supreme Court. I haven't been an evidence nerd. It's been my field. I've taught it for 30 years, and my son is a judge, state judge, and he's taught it now 20 years, so been part of the family, and then our work and federal civil procedures and evidence is now in our 17th year with Chief Judge Rosen from Michigan, Bill Wagner, you probably know,
yes.
Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher, and my son, and we do the updates every year. We keep putting on programs, but I just love the law and the work.
When was that book published, Federal Procedure and Evidence?
We started about 17 years ago. It's published comes out with updates every year, so I'm really hustling doing the updates every year. In fact, I do them every day, just like doing a crossword. Some people do a New York Times crossword. My mom did in ink, but I do the updates primarily for the books. The other guys are busier.
Republished about every two to 3 years?
No, it's been 17 years.
Right.
It's been published, yeah.
But I mean, you republish it, have new issues?
Every year.
Every year.
You know how you have the updates and you have to shuffle the new laws that comes in.
Okay.
So
yeah,
we have a January 1 cut line, and we have this is all part of Thompson Reuters, and so we have editors and senior editors. It's a blast. Great.
You still enjoy it, putting out that book.
Yeah.
Good. You, where do you teach?
Excuse me?
Where do you teach?
Oh, well, I'm not teaching any now, but I taught for 30 years at Lewis and Clark, Evidence and Advanced Advocacy, and But the cases I had on the Supreme Court, some of them they quoted this morning at this conference, the Smith and White versus the Employment Division, whether Native American Indians could use peyote. And Scalia reversed me, and so when I was a baby judge, I gave the talk to the new, representing the new judges. And I said to Scalia, sitting there, said, I had a good reputation in Oregon until you came along, you rascal. And he said, only because you were wrong. I said, no, because you changed the goalposts. And he said, well, I guess we did. And then today they did. He did change the goalposts. So,
Now they admit it, right?
yeah, I had some other really true threat cases. I had really wonderful cases on the Supreme Court, and I got almost all of the evidence cases. I wrote Daubert before the feds wrote Daubert.
When you were on the Supreme Court of
Yeah,
Oregon?
yeah.
Same standard for admission?
I took my pal, Judge Weinstein, Jack Weinstein from New York, and Margaret Berger. I took their lead and then adopted that, the criteria for what later became Daubert for Oregon. So we beat them to the gun.
Judge Kozinski just took your decision and rewrote it?
Yeah, but I'd like to talk more about the action in this federal court, if we can.
Yes.
Okay.
Please do.
Well, it's been just so exciting to be on the front line, and I've traveled back to Hawaii. I just finished a case over there. They just made a movie, The Descendants. Stephen Case bought most of Kauai, 3 golf courses, shopping malls, Poipu Beach, etc. And he got sued for $2.5 billion for insider trading. His dad is the head lawyer in Hawaii, Lombardi and Case. And Stephen Case was on the defense, brought by the Wilcox estate heirs. We were in trial for 5 weeks to the court, and we had 20 lawyers. I made every lawyer take a witness, and because they had the day division and the evening division, it was wonderful. Anyway, we got through that, and it was settled on appeal, and everything worked fine. The other Hawaii cases tend to be great cases. We've had certainly our share at home. I had the first terrorist cases in Oregon, the Portland 7. That was national news. And I had the Mayfield case where I had a local lawyer wrongfully accused of doing the bombing of the railroads in Spain. And that was where we found that the testing by the FBI was faulty. I had the Planned Parenthood case, which against the American Coalition of Life Advocates, where there was true threats when they advocated the murder of the abortion providers, and 7 of them did get murdered. Anyway, I held that was not privileged, and that was a true threat. And they got stuck with $109 million, but then a lot of it was punitive damages. You know what the State Farm case did to that, so it got reduced, but it was upheld that it was a true threat. They covered that this morning too. I worked with Jack Weinstein on breast implants. I had all the West Coast, he had the East Coast. We used my cousin who's head of med school in Oregon to pick up my experts. We didn't believe any of the experts that either side had. They had a bunch of hired guns. I wouldn't trust either one of them farther than I could spit. And we hired our own experts through them. And my cousin worked as an expert for Jack and me. And we got all those cases. Our findings were adopted by the United States and also in England. And we had to push Sam Pointer, who had the original cases, to get off of these people being trial witnesses. They are witnesses where we're going to deal with this pretrial, which we did. It cleared, we're told, over 250,000 cases. I had, that was Hall versus Baxter. We've had a brand new case just on 2020, 2 weeks ago, and it involved Rachel Lee and she was a gypsy, Roma, and her daughters, and they found a retarded fella who was inherited the sole heir to a $20 million estate. So the mama went into her fortune teller to have his fortune taken, and she took his fortune. And she did it real well. She had her baby, her daughter, put on gold curls and convinced this sole heir, who was slow, that he'd married her. They had a phony marriage certificate, and then they brought in the other daughter's baby and said, "This is your son." And so he thought he was taking care of his wife and son. Instead, she was taking care of mama and her boyfriend. One morning, they bought a Bentley and a Ferrari, and one morning, $500,000 worth of car, flew first class to Monte Carlo, blew a couple of million. It was fascinating. That's what I say.
That's an incredible case. With this gypsy woman, you say she was a gypsy woman. Did she live in Oregon?
We put her away to think about it for 100 months, and the others are also doing time.
Was any of the money recovered, I hope?
Yeah, they got they got $5 million back. They got the cars back, and they got a couple of $1 million homes back.
Well, that must have been a fascinating case. Yeah. And that was on 2020, huh?
Yeah, it just was.
Oh, my God. Tell us about the terrorist case that you mentioned earlier. The terrorists?
Yes, Well, they were a group including a high-paid engineer from Intel, Hawash, and we had protests outside, people ringing, beating drums, and making all kinds of fuss to free Hawash. Turned out Hawash was guilty as hell. Anyway, but the leaders were people that had gone over to fight against our troops in Afghanistan, and they were caught. And it was a real tender case because a lot of the surveillance took place in a mosque and so forth. So they all were convicted, they all are sentenced, they're still in prison.
Well, you certainly had an exciting federal career, I'll tell you that. Do you have any particular mentors or models on the federal court that you've followed through your years? Jack Weinstein, obviously,
I must
worked
say,
with him.
I can't help but admire what we have locally. Look what we have, giants. Ted Goodwin. They just wrote a whole history of him. It's at the Historical Society. We had Ed Levy. Now, I've been a judge only 52 years. I'm the new kid on the block. Goodwin went in 1955, and Levy at age 26 went on in 1957. But the trouble with Levy, he started out as a district judge, then he was a state circuit judge. He was a state district judge, a state circuit judge, a magistrate judge, a U.S. district judge, a Ninth Circuit judge, a FISA judge. That guy can't hold a job. Anyway, yeah, those are the type of people that I just totally admire, and you can't find any better.
So you have an outstanding bench both on the Ninth Circuit and Oregon, correct?
Yeah.
I think everybody
Just
believes
think,
that.
Ted became the chief of the Ninth Circuit as well as being a very gifted writer.
Well, you had a lot of experiences on the bench. Do you look back, can you remember your first day as a judge?
Oh God,
And
do
what
I ever.
happened?
Not the first day, the first trial, and every time I'm introduced, they bring this up. Here is Judge Robert Jones in his first trial, and then he said, "You tell him about it." I said, "Well, it was this gang rape case, and they tied her to a bed, and they raped her, and then they did all these bad things." And we got through, and trial counsel was very contentious. All my rulings had made John Henry Wigmore smile. That would make any appellate court write it all off. I practiced my instructions with my bride over the kitchen table. It'd make any appellate court say, perfect. So my last words to the jury were, "Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when you retire to the guilty room." Yeah, well, they weren't listening. The judge boring them with instruction. They weren't listening, never said a word. I sentenced the guy, no appeal.
So what happened?
That's it.
That was it, huh?
No harm, no foul.
Well, I can understand why you
Well,
remember that.
Foul, but no harm.
Oh, golly. How did you feel when some of your old friends from the Oregon bar came before you?
Oh, well, we had a very close group. We were trial lawyers, and we always met every year for St. Patrick's Day. And most of us went on the bench. You have the trial lawyers burning out. And so I had lots of old pals trying cases in front of me. Partners I didn't, but the others I couldn't. I'd have to stop trying cases. So they were the premier trial lawyers. And then two of them became Chief Justice of Oregon Supreme Court.
Did any of them ever give you any hard times if you ruled against them?
They didn't dare.
Okay. Going back over all your years, you told us some of the judges that you really admired. How about some of the trial lawyers that have come before you that you thought were particularly good?
Particularly good?
Yes.
Well, certainly John Schwabe was a hero from Saipan and Guadalcanal and stuff, and he and Wayne Williamson of the Schwabe-Williamson firm were always great. Bruce Spalding was a fabulous guy, and he had a defense practice, but he kept on taking on huge homicide cases and getting acquittals. And we all that gang, judges and trial lawyers, we'd all meet for coffee every morning, and Bruce would be saying, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And you're talking about mentors. That's how I grew up with this coffee group, and even after a judge, we all still met. My partner, Cliff Holson, went on the bench. Bill Dale's another one, he went on the bench.
So after you went on the bench, you were still able to meet with some of the people you'd worked with in the past?
Oh, yeah.
Have coffee
daily.
with them? Yeah, daily, okay. Yeah. And how about lunch? Lunch too?
Nah, well.
No time for lunch, right?
I can't say that. We just, if we went out, we of course would have more for dinner or vice versa, but that's fine.
Sometimes you run into things today, at least I do, where the judge won't even go to lunch with you. And if he does, he insists on paying for his own lunch.
Yeah.
And it's a little different than it used to be when I was younger.
Yeah.
A lack of ability to communicate. Do you feel that at all?
Well, my friends are a bunch of cheap guys. We all we all bought our own lunch.
No matter what. Huh? Okay.
It was not a problem.
Well, you certainly have had a wonderful career. Anything that you'd like to talk about that we haven't brought up?
I can't. The one thing I want to express, right now, in the twilight years, in '88, I don't go to work. I go to court, and I love going to court. It's not work. It's interesting, and the other guys, they sit around, they worry about more and more, about less and less. And so, we have rules in our coffee group in the morning. You get 5 minutes for A&P talk, aches and pain talk. You get 5 minutes for bragging about grandchildren. You got unlimited time how we won the war. Anyway, we try to keep it light, but I really enjoy being with my legal friends.
Do you belong to any bar associations?
Do I belong to them?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. I do a lot of CLE stuff. I always have, as you know. I've been teaching at the Judicial College, and I've been in endless numbers of CLEs. I was chair of the Ninth Circuit Education Committee, and we would have 400 in the audience, and everybody, you were there, use a transponder, and we'd find out whether you're going to sustain or overrule, and then we'd only get about 40% who'd agree.
Yeah, I was there. In fact, I brought in the transponders, and that was a very successful session we had. And I'm sorry they don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But
Well, we're putting on a program for 3 hours next month with the authors, Jerry Rosen from Michigan and Bill Wegner, my son, and me. And then now it's all going to be on the web because we don't do the hotels anymore. We used to go, San Diego, Orange County, LA, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Spokane, and Jerry would do Texas and Michigan and Ohio, and that's a lot of work and time. Now we just do one and it goes nationwide. Pretty slick.
yeah, does it go nationwide live?
No, it's done on the web.
Done?
Yeah, but it's done by a producer. It's coming up.
I see.
It's done in my court, but we have real state troopers, real doctors, real lawyers, and then the audience will be in their offices doing the.
How long a program is that, and what
3
does
hours.
it feature? 3 hours.
3
and
hours,
it features a procedure and evidence. That's what
Yeah.
it's about.
It's all, and it refers to the chapters in our books, of course.
So it's tied into the book.
Yeah.
Do you also put it on
Yes,
DVD?
the title of the book is Federal Civil Trials and Evidence, and it's the Green Books, 3 volumes. Jim Wagstaff, as you know,
Right.
done endless CLEs here. He has the Red Books. Tashima and Schwarzer, but they aren't as active. Well, Jim Versili carries the ball. He's a fabulous speaker. There's another mentor, boy, probably
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, it's a fascinating life. We really appreciate your coming here, and we certainly appreciate what you've given to the Ninth Circuit and to the law in general.
It's nice to be asked. Thank you.
Well, thank you.